Hello, folks. We have a small group today, but not sure if people will hop on as we go along. So hope everyone is doing well. Hey, Sean, how are you?
Good.
Good. How did Love Fest go?
Love is this this
Oh,
weekend
it's
coming.
the coming weekend?
Yeah, it's Brewfest. Brewfest is
Oh,
the last weekend.
got it. How was Brewfest?
Huge
Anything
success.
exciting?
We had we sold twice as many pre-tickets as we did before, and then of course we're beyond sellout on the day of the event. We're only supposed to have 800 people. We had 950, so
Whoa,
it's a great
that's a
event.
great turnout.
Yes,
Nice.
it was.
Where do the proceeds go?
It's the Rotary Club, so they do
Oh,
the various parks in the city, the school projects that that they
yeah.
do, and then there's a reading a library book from each presenter that they present every time they do that to the city's libraries. So it's various events.
Nice. I'm glad it went well. Alrighty. So I was just emailing back and forth with Amy, so I'm not quite sure where she is. Um, Even though it's a small group, curious to know if you were at a trivia event, what would your favorite trivia question section be? Like, what are you really good at? So I'll go first because I'm terrible at it all. And I would probably not want to be the best trivia person on your team, but I would have a lot of fun. And I think I would go with maybe flowers, like names of flowers or something like that. Um, really bad at history, would not be able to get any of those right. Geography, I get lost. So I think I would go maybe with flowers or something like that. How are you, Anna?
Good. This is very relevant because I do a lot of trivia, play a lot of trivia. I guess trivia is
Oh,
a game.
great.
But I'm also very bad at it, but I do have a lot of fun. Um, Plant species too, but maybe more specifically tree species, I guess.
Yeah. All right. I can see us teaming together on those. I like it.
Yeah, we do really well with those and nothing else.
Sean, what would
Well,
yours be?
well, the key to this is having a diversified team that people are good in all in different areas, right? But
Yeah.
geography, I usually do well in geography or history. Those are the two. The sports
I
one, I
figured you would.
yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Amy, can you hear us? I know sometimes she has a microphone thing. Hello, Amy. Sorry. She'll hop on when she can. I'm going to circle around with Let's Grow Kids because they did say they'd start hopping back in after Labor Day. It's a week after that. And I think it's really important for us to know what's happening over in Vermont, the whole sunsetting thing, what they're working on, work through some of their models. We talked at the last meeting, which was advocacy meeting, about connecting people from Vermont with people like, I think her name was Mary Heath, to learn from them rather than states continuing to work in silos. And that conversation was a bit specific to universal pre-K, but people are talking a lot about it in New Hampshire, and it had some positives, but some major gaps in understanding from the holistic process. So we talked about working with Amy and trying to connect some Vermont folks with her. And hey, Amy, can you join us now? I'll speak about the good news Amy had to share, which was she had 12 people or so coming up to be part of this next session, which is really exciting. And that career cultivator is just taking off. So that's fantastic. I know you were working, Sean, with the next steps with the facility, everything continuing to move along well there. I know you've
Yeah,
worked with the folks before.
yeah, I actually have two things to report, and that's one of those.
Right.
We originally were planning on a presentation date in front of the council on October 18th. It's been moved up to October 4th.
Hmm.
So that'll be the public presentation to the city council as part of the capital improvements plan.
Okay.
And yeah, we're finalizing the numbers. I met with Chris Emond on Friday and his development staff in terms of our capital campaign and our strategy for that. And then we had a double-sided one-page sheet that we're looking at to present, plus we'll have the glossies. So we've got that sort of finalized. And then we have Congressman Custer's office. I'd submitted a request for $3 million for the congressionally directed spending grant. They reduced it to $1 million, but that is in the bill that's in front of Congress right now. So I'm optimistic that that will get passed. So those are the three things about the building. And then I met with some businesses, and I can talk about that when you're ready in terms of their interest in childcare.
I think you said the date was October 4th for
Correct.
the city council. That's usually 6 o'clock at okay, City Hall. And then we're a tiny group today, so please, anything you want to share at all, go ahead.
So I was doing a meeting with Hypertherm and Nova Nordisk with state officials from the Business and Economic Affairs Bureau and UVBA. And we go around, we meet with businesses to find out what the challenges and needs are. And Hypertherm was quite clear, and Nova Nordisk both said the same thing. Housing, workforce, right? Housing is the number one issue for them. They can't get housing for their employees. It wasn't necessarily in an order, but also childcare was the other big thing. They talked about that a lot. They're very interested in what the city is doing, and they wanted to know how they could find out more. And I said, we'll be coming to you shortly when we get the package put together. So they're very interested in that. And then, of course, development of that workforce was the three things that were very interested. They were very interested in. But they want to hear more about what we're going to do with childcare. Of course, the folks at Hypertherm are quite familiar. Jenny Levy is involved heavily with that.
Yeah.
Nova Nordisk has heard bits and pieces, but again, we're going to be going to their facility and making a presentation because we're going to need funds, donated funds to make it work.
Right.
So that'll be happening over the next month or so.
Oh,
Hopefully.
great. Oh, that'll be wonderful. Good connections with that too. Anna, did you have an update on food resources survey and maybe some big ideas that came out of that?
Yes. So we're still plugging away at connecting in person /Zoom /phone call with providers that said they wanted to talk more about it. The big themes have been in the little details, like if we were to implement some sort of program that would deliver pre-made frozen meals that all you had to do was thaw and serve. That wouldn't work because some centers have a 30-second rule for how long each kid takes to prepare their meal. So like some ECE providers don't even let families send in those mac and cheese things that take 2 minutes in the microwave because they only have 30 seconds to give each child. And that's just because, as we know, they're very short-staffed and they need to keep ratio. So little details like that are really leading us to pun intended menu of items that we need to create. After we're done, we still have a handful of providers to talk to, and then after that we're going to go through all of the data we've gathered, which has been a lot. I've been having like half an hour to hour long meetings with providers, and they've just been sharing everything with me, which has been really awesome. So we have a lot of data, a lot of experiences, a lot of opinions to synthesize. And then we're gonna take that back. Do you have a question, Joanne?
Nope.
Okay. We're gonna take that back and see what we can come up with, and then send out what we have for our ideas out to see what providers think, if that would work or not. The goal is really to create something that works for them and is not just another thing on their plate. Another pun intended.
Wow. Maybe your trivia thing should be puns.
It
That's
certainly
great.
could be. It could
Yeah.
be at this point ECE providers' experiences with CACFP in New Hampshire.
There you
I would
go.
excel at that.
That's a new one. That's awesome. And I think that's really helpful the way that you're coming at it, providers first, what they need, because we heard it from them. And
Yeah.
so that's great. I was just checking okay. So the ECEA harvest retreat, that's the 30th. So that's kind of the time frame that we're working down to having some bullet points to share. Is that kind of our thought? Excellent.
Yeah. Yep, definitely.
Thank you for that. Thank you for your work too. I'm sure they appreciate the time of reaching out and having person-to-person conversation.
It's been really great to get their body language and just the tone of their words really suggests either, yeah, we're doing okay, or like we're really not doing okay. So it's been
That's
good.
great. Yeah, because we can help them out. Hey Damien, how are you?
Sorry, I'm doing well. I'm eating my lunch at the same time, so you caught me with my
Okay.
mouth full, which is also why I have the video off. But
I just
Yeah.
want to say hello. I was glad you were able to attend the meeting with Cindy Warmington, and perhaps before we end the meeting, you can give us an update on that program, how it's going, where you are, you talked a bit about some of the barriers that you were facing when we're heading into the summer. So just curious to see how all that's going.
yep, happy to do so. Just let me know when the right time is, and I'll let you all know everything you would like to hear.
Great. So we met with Cindy Warmington. I was very impressed with her. I'll roll up my sleeves and try to help. And she asked us for top 5 priorities, began talking to the steering committee members about that. And it basically came back to, hey, look at our North Star. High quality, accessible, affordable early childhood education by state. And then I took the big idea to advocacy. And what we came up with is a thought. What we all circle back to, whether it's Vermont or New Hampshire, is kind of the big umbrella of governance and what it looks like. And there's lots of different perspectives in these groups, which is great. And I'm going to try to, for our next meeting, draft the beginning of what does exist in each state. And then I'm just going to ask folks, if you could have a what if dream big, what would it look like for both states? Where are there gaps? Where are things going very well? And I think that keeps that by-state effort. I know in advocacy, Amy talked a lot about the things in Vermont that we're working and things that were in need of help. And Amy, do you have your hand up? Nope, that would be me. I didn't realize that my arrow turns into a hand. So I want to take a stab at that, because I think if I could put a graphic together, it's much easier to have a dialogue than just brainstorming without putting it onto a Jamboard or something like that. And so we would resend her, meaning sorry, I'm drawing a blank. Re-invite. Thanks, Cindy. Thank you for coming, which I've done. Then a second point is we've worked on this kind of structure. Here's what we see is working. Here's what we see is not working. And instead of just bullet points, I think it's important to give her some solutions to help. And I think, Sean, you were going to follow up with Cindy. Have you had a chance to talk with her since that meeting?
Tomorrow night she'll be at City Hall.
Oh, okay. Is she coming to talk to the city about anything in particular, or just what are the needs of the city?
There's a hearing on the gas plan, the 10-year highway plan tomorrow, and she'll be there tomorrow night for that. City Hall at 6:30.
Are there any other comments from the meeting that we had with Cindy? Okay. So I will put that together. and send it out in draft form and to let people just put in whatever they want. I encourage people, not just let to add on to that as well. And what would be great, Damien, if you could give us an update on how the program is going.
Sure. So to update you all, trying to remember probably where we were at the last stage, probably early in the summer. We were still waiting on getting a lot of our funding commitments actually finalized and wrapped up, which has been the frustrating, lengthy process where we have a bunch of money technically committed, but the final grant agreements, USDA agreements, not in hand yet. And one of the bigger issues was with the CRP award from the state of Vermont, which with the ever-changing requirements that with actually getting them to pay out the money that we are waiting on. So since then, the big ones was our USDA loan, which is a big bulk of our funding, to bridge the project, the CRP funding, and then also our congressionally directed funding money that came from Leahy's office that all have different sets of their own challenge, different sets of challenges involved, and they all of them need to come together together for all of them to work. So the USDA loan, at least we've orally been told that it's committed, signed off on, but we still haven't seen the final signed paperwork, which has always been, it's been a series of things over the summer where, oh, next week we should have it, or next week they're meeting and I'm going to sign off on it. We're told that it's signed and ready to go, but we still at least haven't seen the actual documents with those signatures on it. So we're waiting for that. Congressionally directed funding, similar kind of circumstances. That's been complicated because Leahy retired, so got pushed into not USDA, but a different, I think Health and Human Services or one of the other groups, and then that's passing through Let's Go Kids, and it's actually a $2 million grant, but it's being divided up off as various projects. So that's made that a much slower process as well. So while we have the money committed, we still don't have the final formal paperwork that we need to, be able to hire and sign contracts with our contractors. So we're waiting on that as well. Hopefully once the USDA paperwork comes in, which if it may have come in this week and I just haven't seen it, but that'll help with that side of things as well. We did get another $750,000 Northern Borders grant awarded to us. I think that was last week or the week before. So that's a huge benefit and great to have, especially with the delays in these other projects. And CRP has been more the similar issues with the state of Vermont, where we have a grant agreement now, but it hasn't been signed yet, and they keep kind of changing and shifting the requirements and various things that they ask for. So when we think we have it all done, there's something else that doesn't really make sense or that is difficult to do that they ask for that holds up everything. And they've also said, even though they were supposed to be the bridge funding for everything, that they don't want to pay out the money till everybody else is committed. So until the USDA loan agreements are in and congressionally directed funding, and we have the official documentation on that, they're not paying out that money yet. So we're dealing with that as well. One of the big challenges with the grant agreement that they just came up with was asking for a legal opinion from our council that the documentation that Orange County Parent Child is going to use to show that they have a certain percentage of children and families that are 300% above the poverty level are legally valid and binding, whatever that means. So there is a requirement under the grant that they have to serve a certain amount of their students and families that are at this certain level, 300% above the poverty rate, which they're going to have much more than that. It's not going to be an issue in terms of technically meeting it. But of course, the program isn't set up yet with all the new state requirements in terms of paperwork. Nobody knows what the paperwork for reimbursements are going to look like yet. And there's no model out there for how you legally show that for this type of grants. And instead of telling us what they needed from us, they've asked us to get an attorney to provide a legal opinion on it, which of course our attorney is like, well, I don't know. They're the ones who should be telling us what they will accept and what's not acceptable. So it's been another interesting, frustrating requirement where, and this came up last week, where in some of the discussions where the legislatures or the folks involved on the state level just don't seem to understand how these requirements just don't fit within a childcare center, and the need to have some flexibility or some direction with respect to how we can make it work. So, nobody's concerned, at least on our end or the group, that we're not going to meet the requirement. But we don't know how to tell them what the legally sufficient paperwork will be to show that we're meeting that requirement is. So those are all the kind of fun issues that we've been dealing with. In theory, we're still on track, and we're still publicly saying we're going to get this bid out and get construction done and want to open up at the beginning of next year. However, we can't bid on. We have the architects, we have the drawings, we have all that done, but we can't go out and bid and get contractors and get those contracts signed until all this final paperwork comes in and is officially and signed off on. So, and every time we think we're a week away, there's these little other things that pop up that just slows things up. And of course, the other looming thing out there is if there is a congressional shutdown, of course, that will impact both the USDA and the congressionally directed spending funds.
Lots of moving parts, as you've shared with us from the beginning. Sean, did you go through similar things when you did the EC Center, the other one that you did? Felt the same way?
We did, but that one was a bit simpler because you had a community development block grant and you had state tax credits. But when you're mixing different federal programs like Damien is and like I'm going to be doing as well, I don't even know what the challenges are going to be yet until I see the writing on each one of those grants. So he's a little bit ahead of me on that. But we know it's going to be a problem. We know from the beginning there's going to be conflicts. Well, you can't match this money with that money, and then you're dealing with different agencies that have different requirements. It's going to be a problem. There's no question about it.
Timing and change, timing is a huge issue, and there's just isn't the ability for them to have the sense of speed and urgency that you really need for this type of project. Which becomes an issue. It's even though the people we're working with are very aware of it and know the challenges and know the issues it creates when we can't get what we need signed off on in the right amount of time. There's just so many levels of bureaucracy and issues that pop up that come up on their end that there's just very little we can do to control it. And of course, when you have a construction timeline you're dealing with, that everything, it impacts the budget, the timing, and then you fit in all the other things like the Build Back Better, by US requirements. It's an amazing amount of new moving components, and when you're trying to build it all from these public funds, it's a challenge. And the other big thing that we just I think dodged a bullet on is our contact from with the USDA took a new job, I think, whether a week or two before last, which we found out about kind of after the fact. And then we were like, oh, wait, if he took a new job and hadn't signed the paperwork yet, it actually would have been bumped up to a different level and section of the USDA that we've always been told wouldn't sign off on this type of project because they don't understand them. So we had a little scare last week when we heard about that, and we were like, oh my goodness, they said this was all ready and was be signed off on, but if he left and didn't sign the paperwork yet, it could blow up the entire thing. But Apparently, we've been told that he signed it before he left, and it's there. But again, we haven't seen the paperwork yet and don't have it actually in hand yet. So it's makes us all still very nervous our end, because any one of those things that are completely out of our control can blow things up, even with everything positive otherwise going in our way. And the Northern Borders grant was huge. I mean, we weren't expecting it to get the full $750,000, but that was a big infusion of capital that will be very helpful. But of course, we still have to have everything else in place to, sign contracts and get the construction going.
As far as your project, do you work with a construction management company that helps oversee all of that?
Yeah, we have all that through the architect, through the architecture firms and the construction management. That's all being managed through them. We just need to get to the point where we have the paperwork in hand so we can pull the trigger on doing the final work we need to do to get the, to hire somebody and actually sign contracts and get things going.
Right. I've always heard that the best time to do bids is in the winter. I'm not quite sure about that though, because the construction companies are still trying to make up time from the pandemic, and there was so much rain this summer. A lot of their projects couldn't get done. So I don't know how far back the construction companies are right now. I know that the roofers were delighted with the sun, and they're out there just trying to get as many crews in and circulating them through to try to get the projects up and going.
And then we have the flooding on top of it here that's created huge issues for where a bunch of folks have either had to drop what they're doing and deal with the flooding in Montpelier and Barrie. So there's all those things that we know that are always there that have been still exacerbated by COVID and supply chain issues. But those are all things that we can, as difficult as it will be, we can manage in terms of the normal risks and things that you manage in terms of a construction project. But we need to get the paperwork in hand so we can. I'd rather be dealing with those problems and delays and budget issues than with the waiting and not being certain on the funding that is promised and should be there, but we can't act on until we get all the paperwork in place.
Yeah, certainly understandable.
Yeah.
And frustrating. I feel for you with that. When you're not quite sure and everyone gets excited to move things forward and it's out of your hands, it's very, it's very hard, and people keep looking and you're sending out positive energy because you just want to keep it moving. But there's just a lot that happens behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's tough, especially in terms of doing a capital campaign too, in terms of for the community. Aside from the other funding sources, you don't really. It should have been started over the summer, but you can't start it till you really have these things wrapped up, because you don't want to go forward with that capital campaign and then have congressional shutdown or something come in that blows things up, and then have to go back and either give money back or tell folks that it's really going to be 2 years from now rather than a year from now. So it highlights it's all the challenges that we would normally have in a typical development program, but all compounded by the fact that you have to use even a wider variety of funding sources, plus the childcare component where people just don't get it. As much as we hear it in the news and everybody is aware of how important it is for economic development and survival, when you get to the folks who are dealing with the fundings, they just don't understand why it can't fit into the same box as a factory to produce widgets fits in. And there's still not enough flexibility or ability to be flexible to say, you've got to treat this differently on the childcare front. And which has been our real frustration on the state of Vermont ACCD side, was just because they should have the ability to have that flexibility. So there's a lot of things that aren't technically, they're not legal requirements, but they're requirements that they keep on kind of imposing and changing along the way. And I think part of it's due to the fallout from the, scandal with the JP development, and also issue with the other CRP funds or grants from the program being misused, that they've just gotten overly conservative and gun shy about making any mistakes whatsoever. But it makes it difficult to do this type of problem where you need some sort of risk level of risk tolerance on the form of the government entities, because that's why we're working with a government entity and rather than a private lenders, is because there is some built-in risk to the project.
Listening to this and going kind of in a similar way in New Hampshire, is the Northern Borders funding something that gets applied for annually, or is it a biannual, or?
I don't know all the ins and outs of it. I know we've gotten, this is a second Northern Borders, it's a grant that we've gotten with a significant amount of money. We got a big chunk of money from it through the when we did the acquisition stage as well. They've been really great to work with. But I don't do that part of it. We have, I hear about what they're doing and track it, but just am glad to hear, we're applying for this grant, and this is what we think we can ask for, and here's what we might or may not get. So I don't know those details enough to report on them. I could find out if you need to, though.
That's okay. I was just hearing funding sources is interesting. It's not, as you explained, as simple as it seems, of a direct to kind of apply and see what you get kind of a thing. But that is a large amount, so congratulations. Hopefully that'll keep things moving along in between. And Sean, you have a management company that will help you through this too, right? The ups and downs of the grants and things like that, or is that straight through your department?
No, I have a full-time employee that does that. Rebecca,
Okay.
she's a great writer.
Oh,
And
yeah.
like we have a consultant, a fellow Tom Apple, who you may know, who works on all these things. So he's our USDA contact and for the federally directed funding. So he works directly with those folks in some of the grants. And Northern Borders, some of our staff at GMEDC, and also our childcare consultant Reva McIntyre has experience with them as well. So we've got a good group of people who knows how to work through these grants.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that update. And hopefully when we meet in 2 weeks, you'll have some good news to share, that you actually have something moving forward.
Yeah.
Great. So my part of my work over the next 2 weeks is putting together some kind of organizational chart to kick off with, to share with Cindy on the New Hampshire side, but also think it's valuable on the Vermont side. I'm also going to follow up with folks from Let's Grow Kids. We haven't heard from them in a while, and it would be really helpful for us to know where they are, how they're doing, what's happening in the Vermont side, to keep that conversation going. Any other business for today? Amy, were you able to get your sound?
Yeah, I've been able to listen in.
Oh, great. Good. Do you want to talk a bit about the career cultivator? I did mention the 12 new participants that were coming in. Anything else that you wanted to add?
There was a group starting today. I don't know how many came. I haven't checked in yet. Hoping we get at least 10 in this cohort, which would be great. That would put us at 26. So
We didn't have enough.
Right. And then I think you were going to reach out to me to talk a bit about the tech centers and high schools. So if you send me a note, I would be happy to find a time to meet and review that.
okay, sounds
Those
good. I think
ideas.
we have set up something in the near future with Aaron. So I'll have the girls circle you into that.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, that'd be great.
And I'm wondering if we can talk about this later, but I wonder if we should wait on ELNH so we figure out what is going on.
Yeah, that
That
sounds
our
like a good
board
plan.
well, you guys are gonna be, I'm gonna be sending something out about, we just had that COVID related partnership, because there's so many people on the calls back during COVID that only the partners did the updates.
Mhm.
And the board is going to rethink how we're attached to what's the advocacy piece, because we didn't buy into the advocacy piece. We just bought into the COVID related meetings.
Okay,
We just want to make sure that we don't do any self-harm by making connections that are confusing or something. So I
okay.
don't know. I just caution getting too involved just for a little bit till we figure out what's going on.
That makes sense. And I'm just checking the time frame. Tomorrow I'll be attending a next steps planning meeting at 8 o'clock with Sarah Kay and you, Amy, Carolyn, Isabel. So that's the kind of the Dartmouth health connection that we've had here. We haven't had a chance to meet since spring, although Amy has continued those conversations on and they've provided funding, which is great. And then there's a second meeting tomorrow with Sarah Jackson and Sarah Kay and Michael Bennett and a few others. And I'll be following up with them. That's that conversation about bigger picture work on this initiative. And then just to let you guys know, I'm meeting with Bev Widger, who I've gotten to know, we used to work with on the Click board, and she's HR, owns her own firm, works with Upper Valley ECEA. We were brainstorming about insurance ideas, and she had some thoughts. So I circled back around with her to meet. She has background and experience in that. We talk about dental and health insurance being so important for ECE providers. It's just not happening yet. So I wanted to combine my experience with teachers unions, and teacher insurance models. Perhaps there's something that could be replicated for ECE. And that's one of the things that we continuously talk about. She'd be a great person to connect with. So I'm going to be doing those few things in between. Any other business? Any other updates anyone wants to share about the next 2 weeks, or anything you wanted to bring forward about a workforce or programs model that we didn't cover today? Okay, well, try to stay dry. I'm going to race out and try to mow the front yard. The backyard's a little too wet for me to try. I might have to piecemeal this, but it's great to see you. I know how busy you all are, so I appreciate the time, and have a great day. See you later. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, take care.